Your mind is powerful, but it was never meant to carry the weight of your entire destiny alone. There is a moment, an opening, when your intellect must surrender to something greater, something infinite. That moment is now, and this Sunday, you are being invited into a realm where God takes over, not symbolically, not metaphorically, but completely. This isn't about religion or performance. It's about rewiring your entire internal system to receive, to release, and to realign with the divine rhythm that created you. Your brain was not built to be the master, it was designed to follow the master. When we live in constant control, when we micromanage every outcome, fear every setback, and cling to every plan, we overstimulate our nervous system. The result is chronic stress, emotional fatigue, and spiritual burnout. But when you surrender, when you truly let go and say, God, I trust you, the architecture of your brain begins to change. Your neurochemistry adapts. Peace begins to override panic. Clarity replaces confusion. And most of all, purpose becomes louder than pressure. Letting God take over isn't about doing less. It's about doing only what you were designed to do. When you step back, He steps in. Science has shown that silence, stillness, and spiritual practice activate parts of the brain associated with deep insight and emotional regulation. But there's something even more mysterious happening. Your spirit becomes attuned to divine signals. Those signals aren't noise, they are instruction. They guide your steps, align your relationships, and unlock doors no human strategy could open. This is the realm God is inviting you into, a space where striving ends and flowing begins, a place where you are no longer the source of your strength, but a vessel for His. It is the realm of deep surrender. It is the zone where breakthrough is born. It's not passive, it's powerful. Surrender is a weapon. Trust is a strategy, and obedience is a neurological switch that flips you from chaos into clarity. Every time you enter His presence, whether in prayer, worship, or stillness, your brain and body synchronize with divine rhythm. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for focus and decision-making, becomes sharper. The amygdala, the fear center of the brain, begins to quiet down. What's happening isn't just spiritual, it's physiological. You are literally becoming who God designed you to be. But that happens only when you step into His realm, not the realm of intellect alone, not the realm of performance, the realm of trust, the realm of letting go, the realm of divine takeover. This Sunday is not just a service, it's a portal, a moment in time designed to recalibrate your entire being. You don't have to carry the burden anymore. You don't have to force results. You don't have to control every outcome. You are being invited to lay it all down and let God move through you, think through you, act through you. And here's the truth. When God takes over, your life accelerates. Not always in the ways you expect, but always in the ways you need. Delays turn into development. Pain becomes preparation. Silence turns into strategy. And closed doors transform into corridors of divine timing. Everything begins to shift when you stop striving and start surrendering. You were never meant to do this alone. You were never created to operate in isolation from the one who formed you. This Sunday, answer the invitation. Step into the realm where God takes over. Your mind, your body, your spirit, they're ready. But most importantly, your purpose is waiting. Let go, let God, and enter the realm where transformation begins. There comes a point in every believer's journey when striving must give way to surrender. It is not weakness, it is wisdom. When you live in a constant state of control, attempting to manipulate every variable of your life, your brain stays locked in survival mode. Stress hormones flood your system, your vision narrows. You lose connection to your deeper intuition, to your purpose, and ultimately to the voice of God. But what if I told you that your brain was designed not just for action, but for alignment? that its deepest healing, clearest thinking, and highest function are activated when you step back and let God step in. This is not philosophical, it is physiological. When you let go, your nervous system rebalances. Your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for fear, begins to quiet. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of decision-making and higher thinking, starts to engage. Trust isn't just spiritual, it's neurological. God made your mind to be a receiver of peace, but it can only receive when it's not busy playing God. This Sunday is not just a ritual on your calendar. It's an invitation to step into a different realm, a realm where God doesn't just guide, you let Him take over, not just on the surface, at the core of your being, at the subconscious level where real transformation happens. This is the realm where destiny unfolds, not because you're pushing harder, but because you're allowing His hand to lead. Your goals, your timing, your plans, they all must bow to His orchestration. When that happens, your life doesn't slow down, it aligns. And alignment produces acceleration. This is why people who live surrendered lives often seem to be carried. They don't burn out the same way. They don't fight battles they were never called to. Their steps seem ordered because they are. Their minds remain sharp, not because they have all the answers, but because they've submitted to the source of all wisdom. In that posture, God can do more in a moment than we can do in a lifetime of effort. When you enter into this realm, even your inner dialogue begins to shift. The self-critical thoughts, the fear-driven patterns, the obsession with outcomes, these are replaced by inner stillness. Stillness is not inactivity, it is internal alignment with divine timing. And neuroscience confirms what the Spirit has always known. When you practice stillness, when you pause and open yourself to a power higher than yourself, your entire physiology changes. Your heart rate lowers, your breathing stabilizes, your brain waves slow into more synchronized creative frequencies. That's when insight emerges, that's when the fog lifts, that's when you begin to hear not just your thoughts, but His instructions. That's when God takes over, not by force, but by invitation. He waits for your surrender, not because He lacks power, but because He honors your freedom. This Sunday, don't just attend, enter. Enter with intention. Enter with an open mind and an available heart. This is not the moment to perform, this is the moment to pause. God is ready to take over, but He will not compete with your control. When you walk into that space with your hands lifted, both physically and metaphorically, something happens. Your internal systems, your stress responses, your immune function, even your brain chemistry begin to reset. Not because of the building you're in, but because of the presence you're in. You are stepping into a divine operating system, and in that system, nothing is wasted. Not your pain, not your delays, not your doubts. Everything is repurposed. Everything is redeemed. And so, you have a choice. Will you keep driving your own life, white-knuckled and worn out, or will you allow the God who created the blueprint for your brain to lead you through His higher path? He knows the terrain, He knows the timing, He knows what's ahead, and He knows you deeply, fully, eternally. Let Him take over. Let Him reset your system, and step boldly into the realm where He reigns and you rest, the realm where your strength ends and His glory begins. This Sunday is your threshold. Step in. There's something powerful that happens in the human brain when we finally stop fighting for control and begin to trust something greater than ourselves. For many of us, we've lived most of our lives in a constant state of striving, always reaching, always analyzing, always pushing to make things work. But the brain, while incredibly complex, was never designed to bear the full weight of your future. It can manage tasks, solve problems, and adapt to change, but it was also created with the capacity for surrender. That surrender isn't passive, it's deeply active. It's a neurobiological decision to release fear, deactivate the stress response, and open up to divine instruction. When you do this, when you consciously decide to trust God and let Him take over, your nervous system begins to shift. Your heart rate slows, your thinking clears. You're no longer caught in survival mode, you're in alignment. This is the realm where God takes over, and He's inviting you to enter it fully this Sunday. There's a divine intelligence that goes beyond intellect. It's not something you learn through study or figure out through logic. It's something that reveals itself when you slow down, breathe, and say, God, I need you to lead. That moment of surrender activates something spiritual, but also something physical. Neuroscience has proven that when we engage in spiritual practices like prayer, stillness, and worship, parts of the brain associated with compassion, self-awareness, and long-term vision become more active. You stop living in reaction, and you start living in revelation. God doesn't need you to be perfect. He needs you to be present. That's why this Sunday is more than a routine gathering. It's a divine appointment. An atmosphere has been prepared for you to step into a higher dimension of trust. Not just to believe in God from a distance, but to let Him govern the very framework of your life, your time, your thoughts, your decisions. Because when God takes over, your life becomes a reflection of His wisdom, not just your willpower. You were never meant to carry anxiety like armor. You were never meant to wake up each day trying to figure everything out on your own. Your mind is a brilliant tool, but it is not the source. God is. And when your source becomes your strategy, your life shifts. Your decisions aren't made from fear, they are made from peace. Your goals aren't driven by pressure, they are aligned with purpose. That's what happens in the realm where God takes over. It's not chaos, it's clarity. It's not confusion, it's direction. It's not noise, it's knowing. This is not mystical, it's measurable. People who live from a place of spiritual surrender often experience lower levels of inflammation, better emotional regulation, and greater resilience in times of crisis. Why? Because their foundation isn't built on unpredictability, it's built on the unshakable presence of God. And He's inviting you into that foundation now. The world trains us to stay in control, to grasp tighter, to plan harder, to never let go. But faith requires the opposite. It requires you to trust what you cannot see and to follow when the path ahead isn't fully visible. Your brain may resist that at first because uncertainty triggers alarm bells, but the more you train your mind to trust God, the more those alarm bells turn into internal calm. Your internal dialogue shifts from what if it goes wrong to what if God is already working. That shift changes everything. And this Sunday you have a chance to practice that trust in a tangible way. You're not just entering a building, you're stepping into the realm of surrender, where your body, mind, and spirit come into agreement with God's will. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's the place where miracles start, where healing flows, where your purpose finds momentum. God is not asking you to have all the answers. He's asking you to give Him permission to lead. Will you enter that realm? Will you let Him take over? Your mind is ready. Your soul is waiting. This Sunday, everything can change. There's a limit to how much control the human mind can maintain before it begins to break down. Many people walk through life operating in a state of hypervigilance, trying to predict every outcome, anticipate every threat, and fix every problem. But neurologically, that constant state of alertness eventually drains the system. It keeps cortisol levels high, sleep disrupted, and your emotional bandwidth stretched thin. Your brain, brilliant as it is, was never created to carry the burden of being the source of your own peace. That peace can only come from God. When you surrender, when you step into the realm where He takes over, your mind enters a completely different state. It's not the absence of thought, it's the presence of divine clarity, a spiritual frequency that quiets the noise and allows truth to rise to the surface. You don't lose yourself in this realm. You find yourself, your real self, the one designed not just to function but to flourish under divine leadership. This Sunday, God is extending an invitation into that space. The only question is, will you step into it? Your brain is more than a container of logic and memory. It's a changeable, responsive instrument designed to evolve. Neuroscience calls this capacity neuroplasticity, and it means you are never locked into your current way of thinking. Your mindset, habits, even emotional responses, they're not permanent. They're patterns, and patterns can be rewritten. But that rewrite doesn't start with willpower. It starts with surrender. When you give God access, He doesn't just adjust your circumstances, He transforms your perspective. You start to see challenges as growth points, delays as divine protection, closed doors as guidance, not rejection. That shift is what opens you to walk in the flow of God's timing. And from a brain science perspective, this shift actually enhances performance, focus, and adaptability. When you're in a surrendered state, the fear centers in your brain calm down, while the areas responsible for insight and wisdom light up. That's no coincidence, it's design. God engineered you to operate best under His direction. That's why the realm where He takes over feels so radically different from the one you've been trying to control. It's not exhausting, it's energizing. God never meant for you to walk through life anxious, exhausted, and overwhelmed. But we live in a world that celebrates overthinking and rewards overfunctioning. We confuse busy with effective. We confuse control with safety. But in the spiritual realm, the opposite is true. Control often leads to chaos, but surrender brings stability. Not because circumstances change instantly, but because your internal system is no longer reacting to everything. You begin to respond from a place of trust. And when you trust God, your body relaxes, your mind refocuses, and your spirit opens. That's the divine rhythm we're called to live in. And this Sunday is more than just a moment to be inspired. It's an invitation to realign, to come out of your own head and enter God's presence with intention. Because when you do, He doesn't just comfort you, He reconfigures you. He rewires the fear, the confusion, the shame, and replaces it with purpose, peace, and clarity. The kind that doesn't just get you through the day, but positions you for the future He's already prepared. You may not realize it, but your internal resistance to rest, stillness, and surrender is not just psychological, it's spiritual. It's the tension between your will and God's. And every time you choose to release control, you're not giving up. You're stepping up. You're moving from a self-directed life to a spirit-led one. That's what this realm is about. It's not magic, it's transformation. It's not escapism, it's alignment. And when you live aligned with the one who knows all, sees all, and designed your destiny, you become unstoppable, not because of your strength, but because of His. You've tried it your way. You've carried it long enough. Now it's time to enter the realm where God takes over. This Sunday isn't just another day. It's a divine transition point, a holy exchange, a neurological and spiritual upgrade. And all He's waiting for is your yes. There is a sacred shift that happens inside the mind and body when you stop living in control and start living in surrender. For many, control feels like safety, it feels like protection, but in truth, it creates a kind of spiritual and neurological fatigue that wears down your clarity, your peace, and your capacity to hear God. You become overstimulated mentally and undernourished spiritually. Your nervous system stays on high alert, your thoughts race, and your body bears the weight of a soul that's trying to carry what only God was meant to hold. The brain, though powerful, has its limits, and yet God designed it in such a way that it thrives under divine direction. That's why your soul longs for surrender. That's why peace doesn't come from more control, but from letting go. You don't find freedom in your grip. You find it when your hands are open, This is the beginning of the realm where God takes over. And this Sunday, He's inviting you into that place, not just in theory, but in reality. A space where your mind no longer drives the mission, but aligns with the mission of heaven. We often think surrender means weakness, but neurologically and spiritually, it's one of the most powerful positions you can occupy. The moment you surrender, your stress circuits begin to quiet. The hypothalamus signals your body to exit the fight or flight state. Your breathing deepens, your muscles unclench, and more importantly, your mind becomes receptive. In this state, God doesn't just comfort you, He teaches you. This is when the whisper of the Spirit can finally be heard, and that whisper brings guidance, strategy, and insight that you couldn't have uncovered through human reasoning. The brain's neuroplasticity is activated during surrender. It begins forming new pathways that reflect trust instead of trauma, clarity instead of confusion, faith instead of fear. Your brain starts to rewire itself for peace. But that can only happen when you stop resisting what God is trying to release through you. The realm where God takes over is not passive, it's deeply interactive. You respond by trusting. You partner with heaven by releasing your own agenda. And suddenly, everything changes, not always around you, but always within you. This Sunday is not about checking a religious box. It's about stepping into a new way of being, a way that is physiologically healthier, emotionally grounded, and spiritually aligned. When you gather in God's presence intentionally, you create space for transformation. The collective faith, the sound of worship, the stillness of prayer, all of it contributes to an environment where your system resets. Your body may be in the room, but your soul is entering a realm. And in that realm, healing happens without striving. Insight arrives without overthinking, and the pressure lifts not because the situation changed instantly, but because you did. The brain in a state of surrender is more creative, more intuitive, and more resilient. You're not just inspired, you're realigned, and that realignment makes you more responsive to God's voice in the week ahead. This is why regular encounters matter. Not because God isn't with you at home, but because gathering creates momentum. The more you practice surrender, the more natural it becomes. What felt like risk becomes refuge. What felt like letting go becomes being carried. You are not failing because you feel tired. You're tired because you've been trying to lead in places where God wanted you to follow. The constant pressure to be strong, to have all the answers, to never fall apart, it creates a disconnection from grace. But grace is the environment you were made to thrive in. Grace is not an abstract idea. It's a spiritual energy that rejuvenates your mind, restores your emotions, and re-anchors your direction. And it is abundant in the realm where God takes over. You don't have to know how it all ends. You don't have to calculate every next step. You only need to trust the one who already sees it all. God's sovereignty is not a theological concept. It's a personal invitation to rest. Rest in knowing He's orchestrating what you can't understand yet. Rest in knowing He's already made a way through the unknown. Rest in knowing your future is safer in His hands than it is in your thoughts. That's the beauty of surrender. It's not losing, it's exchanging. You trade anxiety for alignment. You trade confusion for clarity. You trade burden for breath. This Sunday is your threshold. It's more than a moment, it's a movement into a deeper space of trust. God is not asking for your perfection. He's asking for your permission. Will you let Him take over? Will you allow the neural patterns of stress to be replaced by supernatural stillness? Will you finally lay down the pressure to figure it all out and step into the flow of a life led by the Spirit? You're not too late. You're right on time. This is your open door, your turning point, the beginning of a new rhythm where your effort is no longer the engine, His presence is. The realm is open. The invitation has been sent. All that's left is your yes